In the annals of history, characters have risen and fallen. Battles have been won and lost, and tales of heroism and cowardice have been woven into the very fabric of our shared human narrative. As we embark on this exploration, it is imperative that we first delve into the meaning of cowardice. The shadows of cowardice have often been cast upon those who falter in the face of adversity, those who retreat when met with challenges, or simply those who do not act due to overwhelming fear. Historically, societies have considered cowardice as not just the lack of courage, but also as a moral failing. Psychological frameworks sometimes interpret it as an overwhelming sense of self-preservation, sometimes overriding moral or ethical stances. Yet, cowardice, like all human traits, is complex. It is not just about the absence of bravery, but also about understanding the presence of certain fears and insecurities. Musashi's viewpoint. If we turn the pages back to the era of feudal Japan, a figure stands tall against the backdrop of warriors, swordsmen, and samurais. His life, punctuated by duels, solitary travels, and deep introspection, offers an invaluable lens to understand cowardice. Musashi, for whom every duel was as much a mental battle as a physical one, might not have viewed cowardice as mere fear. To him, it might have represented a lack of preparation or understanding, an inability to face one's own self. In his teachings and writings, one could infer that the true cowardice was in not seeking to understand, not striving for improvement, and not facing the internal demons that held one back. As we venture further, let's take Musashi's hand and journey into the heart of cowardice to confront, understand, and perhaps conquer it. With this understanding, we set the stage for Musashi's era, an era where swords clashed, honor was paramount, and the line between bravery and cowardice was razor thin. Stepping back into the turbulent times of feudal Japan, the air was thick with tension. Political upheavals, territorial disputes, and personal vendettas painted the landscape in a grim hue. In this setting, the samurai emerged, not merely as warriors, but as symbols of courage, honor, and discipline. Their lives were a dance with danger, an embodiment of living on the edge. For the samurai, each day could bring a challenge to their honor, which often meant a duel to the death. Whether navigating the political intrigues of their lords, battling rival factions, or simply living up to their code, their lives were a testament to facing fear on a daily basis. Donning their armor, sharpening their katanas, and practicing their martial forms were as much about preparing the body as they were about steeling the mind. The anticipation of a potential challenge, the very essence of their lives, meant that they were perpetually in proximity to fear. And in this environment, a single misstep or moment of hesitation born from cowardice could spell doom. Musashi's stand. Amid this volatile world, Miyamoto Musashi charted his path. While many of his contemporaries might have wielded their swords in service of a lord or in pursuit of personal glory, Musashi's journey was different. He faced fears, yes, but he did so with a perspective sharpened by introspection and philosophy. Each duel he entered wasn't just a test of his skill, but a confrontation with his inner self. Fear, to him, was an adversary to be acknowledged and then disarmed. Through his writings and actions, it's evident that Musashi did not flee from fear, but rather faced it head-on, extracting wisdom from its depths. His response to adversity was neither rash bravado nor paralyzing fear, but a calculated strategy forged in the fires of self-awareness. With Musashi's perspective in mind, the line between bravery and cowardice becomes less about the absence of fear and more about one's response to it. As we weave deeper into his life's tapestry, let's delve into the nature of this response and the philosophies that shaped it. In the dawning chapters of Musashi's life, we find a raw, unrefined warrior still seeking his place in the world. A world dominated by seasoned samurai and established schools of combat. As a budding fighter, Musashi wasn't exempt from the trepidation that often haunts beginners. Tales whisper of times he faltered or seemed unsure, momentarily eclipsed by the shadows of more seasoned warriors. But every duel, every confrontation was a lesson, not just in combat, but in confronting oneself. The shift, an evolution was underway within Musashi. There wasn't a singular dramatic moment, but a series of encounters and introspections that nudged him forward. Gradually, the youthful hesitations were replaced by a strategic calm. The raw energy was channeled into precision, and fear was redefined, not as a crippling force, but as a compass, pointing toward growth. In this transition, Musashi laid the groundwork for the legend he would become. His early battles served as the anvil upon which his spirit was forged, leading him to a path less traveled, a journey within. Training the mind beyond physical battles, the art of combat isn't restricted to a blade's edge. For every external enemy Musashi faced, he recognized an internal counterpart. The line between physical and mental realms blurred for him, revealing the interconnected dance of swordplay and psyche. As we trace Musashi's journey, we come to understand that for him, true prowess wasn't just in mastering a weapon, but in mastering the mind. In his writings and teachings, he emphasized cultivating a mental resilience as robust as steel. He trained incessantly, yes, but he also meditated, contemplated, and reflected, nurturing an indomitable spirit. Every swing of his sword was also a swing at the frailties and doubts that clouded the mind. To Musashi, the most formidable adversaries were not always those who stood opposite him in battle, but those that lurked within. Anxiety, overconfidence, anger. These were challenges as real as any physical opponent. His techniques were not just about movement and precision, but also about self-awareness. By isolating himself, he honed his ability to confront these inner shadows, wrestling with them until he emerged as their master. Yet Musashi knew the path was ongoing. Every day presented a new chance to wrestle with the self, to mold the mind, and to prepare for battles both seen and unseen. This philosophy saw him not merely as a warrior, but as a sage, understanding that the battleground of the mind is as vast and complex as any in the outside world. As we delve deeper, we see how Musashi's journey into the mind's expanse laid the foundation for his most significant triumphs. The Niten Ichi-ryu, Musashi's dual-blade philosophy. Emerging from the dense forests of introspection, Musashi crystallized his revelations into a style of his own, the Niten Ichi-ryu, or the two heavens as one style. This wasn't just a testament to his prowess with the sword, but a manifestation of his understanding of the delicate balance between the physical and the metaphysical. The dual blades, at first glance, symbolized Musashi's unrivaled skill. However, a deeper look reveals more. One blade slashed at the world outside, the tangible threats and challenges. The other cut through the nebulous world within, dissecting fears, doubts, and hesitations. Together, they represented his commitment to mastering both external battles and the internal wars of the soul. Musashi's practice went beyond the martial. The two swords became a philosophy, a dance of action and introspection. As his physical blade found rhythm in combat, his metaphysical blade found resonance in silent meditation and contemplation. It was this equilibrium, this synchronization of movement and mindfulness, that elevated him from a mere fighter to a philosopher-warrior. This balanced approach became the lighthouse guiding Musashi through the stormy seas of life, and as we navigate further, it will illuminate how this philosophy can guide us in confronting cowardice head-on. Solitude as strength, embracing loneliness. As the rhythm of the two blades danced in harmony, Musashi found another potent ally in his journey against cowardice, solitude. The same philosophy warrior who wielded two swords often chose the silence of isolation over the din of society. But why? Much like his dual blades that served a purpose beyond mere combat, Musashi's deliberate retreat into solitude wasn't an escape, but a strategic choice. He believed that distancing oneself from external influences was vital to truly listen to one's inner voice and confront internal fears. The world's noise often masks our internal whispers, and by stepping away, Musashi ensured he heard every murmur of doubt, every scream of fear, addressing them head-on, from loneliness to empowerment. But Musashi's solitude was not one of desolation or sadness. Instead, he turned isolation into empowerment. Alone with his thoughts, he engaged in introspective battles, refining his spirit and sharpening his inner blade. Every bout of solitude made him stronger, more resilient, forging a will that would remain unbroken in the face of adversity. This mastery over solitude would prove pivotal as Musashi continued to evolve, intertwining his inner strength with the philosophies he adopted, guiding him on how to eradicate cowardice from its very roots. Strategy over strength. Emerging from the profound reflections of solitude, Musashi's approach to combat and life evolved. It wasn't just about mastering one's own fears, but anticipating and understanding the fears and intentions of others. Thus, his focus shifted from sheer might to the might of the mind. Thinking ahead, Musashi realized that true strength was not just in confronting fears, but in preventing them. By thinking several steps ahead, a warrior can anticipate potential threats and challenges. Such foresight mitigates fear, as the unknown is often what terrifies us most. By becoming familiar with the potential outcomes and preparing for them, one can turn apprehension into anticipation. Musashi's strategic brilliance. His duels are testament to this. There were instances where Musashi would arrive late, purposely to unnerve his opponent. Other times, he employed strategies that seemed unconventional, like using an oar instead of a sword. But in each case, his actions were deliberate, aimed not just at defeating his opponent's physical form, but their mind. By employing cunning and strategy, Musashi showcased that it wasn't just about overpowering an opponent but outthinking them. Through such intellectual maneuvers, he demonstrated that understanding and strategy could quell fear far more effectively than brute force. As he progressed in his journey, Musashi's philosophies further evolved, showing that overcoming cowardice wasn't just about confronting fear, but reshaping one's entire perspective towards challenges. Embracing impermanence, accepting the transience of life. From Musashi's strategic insights, we discern a deeper understanding, one rooted in the samurai code itself, the acceptance of life's fleeting nature. The samurai lived by the sword, always teetering on the precipice of mortality. By acknowledging this, they could live without the debilitating fear of death. Musashi, too, recognized this truth. His confrontations were not just battles against adversaries, but against the pervasive fear of death. In understanding and embracing impermanence, Musashi found the freedom to act without hesitation. By accepting death as an inevitable part of life, he could face any situation head-on. This knowledge acted as a liberating force, enabling him to take bold actions without the shadows of doubt and cowardice. For when one truly understands the fleeting nature of life, the chains of cowardice begin to break, giving way to a life lived with purpose and vigor. From here, we see that Musashi's philosophies weren't just about physical or strategic prowess, but also about a deeper spiritual awakening. Musashi's art, painting and sculpting. Following his understanding of life's impermanence, Musashi sought other mediums to channel his insights. Beyond the sharp edges of his swords lay the gentle strokes of his brush. Beyond the sword, despite his reputation as a formidable swordsman, Musashi was equally adept with the paintbrush. His artworks, much like his duels, were expressions of his innermost thoughts and emotions. Delving into art, Musashi confronted his fears on a canvas. Each painting and sculpture became a reflection of his battles, not against opponents, but against his inner demons. Through his creations, he found another way to face and overcome his fears, solidifying his belief that courage wasn't just exhibited in battles, but also in the soul's silent expressions. Drawing inspiration from his art, we are led to believe that confrontation isn't always physical. Sometimes it's an internal dialogue, waiting to be expressed. Cultivating resilience. From the contemplative strokes of his brush, we transition to another dimension of Musashi's character: his undying resilience. Throughout his journey, both on the battlefield and in life, Musashi faced challenges and setbacks, but like the strokes on his canvas, he took each defeat and transformed it into a lesson. Not all of Musashi's battles ended in victory. There were encounters that left him humbled, perhaps even wounded, not just in body, but in spirit. Yet, it's crucial to recognize that these setbacks were instrumental in sculpting the legend we admire today. Each loss was a chapter, a story in itself, that taught Musashi more about himself, his techniques, and his adversaries. What truly set Musashi apart was not his ability to win, but his capacity to learn, adapt, and bounce back stronger. With every setback, he delved deeper into his techniques, refining them, and sometimes even reinventing them. He sought perfection, not in remaining undefeated, but in ensuring that a defeat was never repeated. This resilience wasn't just in combat. It reflected in every sphere of his life, teaching us that setbacks are not the end, but rather stepping stones to mastery. In understanding this, we too can learn to turn our defeats into springboards for greater achievements. Modern interpretations, Musashi's teachings. Today, transitioning from the historic landscapes of Musashi's life, we are beckoned into the bustling streets of today. In a world significantly different from Musashi's era, one might wonder, how do his teachings find relevance? Yet the heart of his philosophy remains universal, forever pulsing with timeless wisdom. Even as skyscrapers replace castles and smartphones replace swords, the core challenges of the human spirit remain: fear, doubt, hesitation. These are battles we all grapple with. By interpreting Musashi's principles, we find tools and strategies adaptable for our modern existence. His emphasis on preparation, strategic thinking, and continuous self-improvement are just as essential in a boardroom as they were on a battlefield. Musashi's teachings aren't merely about overcoming foes, but about facing our daily challenges head-on. Whether it's a daunting job interview, an uncomfortable conversation, or simply the challenge of pushing past our limits, invoking the spirit of Musashi can guide us. By embodying his resilience, strategy, and relentless pursuit of mastery, we too can stride confidently into life's arenas, unburdened by the weight of cowardice. The real fight, conquering the self. Emerging from the shadows of our modern metropolis, we're reminded of an age-old truth. Often, our most formidable adversary isn't external, but the reflection staring back at us. Musashi, with all his skill and might, was no stranger to this internal struggle. But it wasn't just about mastering the art of swordsmanship. It was about mastering himself. Musashi's greatest enemy. Beyond the clanging of blades and duels under cherry blossom trees, Musashi's profound battles were with his inner self. The young warrior who once trembled before opponents grew to realize that his ego, impatience, and inner fears were foes even more potent than flesh and bone. They whispered doubts, bred hesitation, and threatened to derail his journey. In response, Musashi crafted an inner discipline as rigorous as his physical training. He believed in reflection, harnessing the lessons of both victory and defeat. By continuously confronting his limitations, he evolved, transitioning from raw potential to polished mastery. His isolation periods weren't just moments of rest, but intense self-interrogations, wherein he honed his spirit and purged cowardice. But how did he achieve this self-conquest? Through meditation and deliberate contemplation, through art, where each brushstroke became a dialogue with his soul, through writing, where he dissected his thoughts, fears, and aspirations, and through ceaseless practice, where he sought not just external prowess, but internal alignment and balance. It's a lesson we carry forward. The real battlefields lie within. Every choice, every hesitation, every step forward or retreat reflects our internal dynamics. But by emulating Musashi's unwavering commitment to self-mastery, we can rise, ready to face not just the world, but the intricate labyrinths of our psyche. The path ahead. As our exploration of Musashi's world and wisdom draws to a close, one truth stands undiminished. Bravery isn't an end, but a perpetual voyage. Every horizon reached only unveils further distances to traverse, each presenting its own set of challenges. Musashi, throughout his life, showcased that true courage was never about reaching a point where fear no longer existed. Instead, it was about moving forward despite it. With every duel, every introspection, and every brushstroke, he highlighted that bravery is an ever-evolving dance with one's fears. As the sun sets over these ancient tales, Musashi's silhouette remains, steadfast against the test of time. He's not just a legendary swordsman, but a beacon, guiding those willing to confront their own reflections. And as we navigate our modern labyrinths, may we harness Musashi's spirit, drawing strength from his lessons and embracing the silent, relentless pursuit of our inner power.